In September 2010, the People's Republic of China shocked the world by halting critical rare earth mineral exports in retaliation to a territorial dispute with Japan in the East China Sea.
What do cars, precision-guided missiles, and the television you're watching right now have in common? They all depend on something called rare earth elements, unusual metals that are sprinkled inside almost every piece of high tech you can think of. Most people have never heard of them, but we have become so reliant on rare earths that a few years ago, an intense global power struggle broke out over their free flow. The reason is that one country has a virtual monopoly, roughly 90% of the mining, refining, and processing of rare earths, China.
Oh, hey, did you know that basically your entire life depends on rare earth minerals? Oh, and also that we're running out of them.
Well, China says it plans to restrict exports of rare earth metals and build a strategic reserve of these valuable minerals. But this decision by the world's #1 producer of rare earth metals has sparked global concerns. Let's check out what these are.
In any extended conflict, China controls the outcome.
There's 57 pages of weapons systems that the U.S. is 100% dependent on China for. These don't even include the stuff that the soldier in the field carries, his communication or targeting systems. All of these also require rare earths. There's 100 systems. Every one of them is 100% dependent on China. We need that person who can actually demand that we solve the problem or we apply the law.
Rare earth materials are used by American manufacturers to make high-tech products like advanced batteries that power everything from hybrid cars to cell phones. We want our companies building those products right here in America.
Rare earths are metals. While they're still part of the periodic table, they actually have their own little box at the bottom. There is much more desire for the heavier rare earths. We use those things in all of our electronic devices.
The biggest uses of rare earths are for the electronics and auto industries, and much of that is actually made in China. In the end, everyone still gets their television set.
At first, we told members of Congress how important it was economically. They didn't get them excited. So then we said to them, look, it's undeniable that rare earth issue is a national security issue, right? You have a constitutional obligation to take some action.
America's national security is very dependent right now on China.
Neodymium and samarium help the Abrams tank navigate and power some Navy ships. They make up night vision goggles and radar systems. One U.S. government report found element shortages have already delayed some weapons production.
Why are the rare earths separate from the rest of the periodic table? It's because of their electron configuration. This is why lanthanides and actinides are so important, is because they have f orbital electrons. And that is what brought modern electronics into the golden age, which we are in right now. We have 7 Fs. There's a very specific way in which the electrons add. Element to element to element as you go up in the periodic table. Look at number 7, right in the middle, gadolinium. It means that every single one of these 7 orbitals has exactly 1 electron in it, and they're all pointing up. It allows me to make this laser. If I go a little bit higher, I can make green laser light. If I go a little bit higher, I can make blue laser light. In addition to visible light, we're trying to very precisely control electromagnetic radiation, stuff that we can't see but is nevertheless light. And so that's why they are in satellite guidance systems and our cell phones and our computers. Spin up, spin up, spin up. 1 electron per orbital. And they're all pointing in one direction. That's how magnets work. And when you have per mole or per gram a lot of these that work well with other what are called high spin metals like iron, like cobalt, you have fabulous punch. You've got a lot of magnet in a very small size.
Older folks like me will recall a day when earphones didn't look like that. It was more like this. There were these big things that went over our ears. The whole trick to that has been the invention of a little magnet based on neodymium iron boron magnets. Extremely powerful magnets, and they use a rare earth mineral called neodymium. One of the places they find application is in the generators that sit on top of windmills. Because if you're going to put a generator on a windmill, on this really, really high stock, you want it to be as lightweight as possible.
We want our companies building those products right here in America. But to do that, American manufacturers need to have access to rare earth materials, which China supplies.
So let's find alternatives. Toyota is doing that with their car. They're trying to reduce reliance on heavy rare earths. What do you think about that as a strategy?
If you don't have access to those higher energies and the more precise control over those higher orbitals, that makes things harder. You could use, for example, lighter rare earths in combinations, in pairs, that may permit you to do that. So there's a lot of tricks that you could try and pull off. I would still submit that that's probably not going to get you what you want. We've got plenty of rare earths, but we refuse to move. And now we have national security being threatened by us buying it from what is arguably still called in very conservative circles our enemy, China. What are we doing?
Thorium is a companion element to rare earths. There is a high correlation between heavy rare earths and thorium. So generally speaking, when you are mining the much more valuable suite of heavy rare earths, you're getting a lot of thorium.
When you do monazites, you probably get about as much thorium out of the mineral as you do rare earths.
The NRC and the IAEA made some classification changes that dealt with thorium. Basically make monazites fall into the category of source material. Just prior to these classification changes, monazite represented about 50% of the world's rare earth supply.
Jim and I gave a talk at the Society of Mining Engineers, and right before us, one of our other supporters, Jim Hedrick, gave a talk, and he had just left the United States Geological Survey. Jim Hedrick is a very laid-back fella, and he's standing up there and very laconically, he's like, so these are the materials that we were very reliant on back in 1985, and now those are the ones we're reliant on today. And I was like, holy crap! Oh, I was like, are you kidding me? And he's, and he was like, oh yeah, we're in a really bad way.
And remember, this is a byproduct. This is something that was a very low or no cost byproduct of some other mining.
Pretty much every mine is already mining rare earths. Every iron mine, titanium mine, phosphate mine, they're all producing ore that contains very large amounts of rare earths, but what they're doing is throwing that ore right back into the ground. The Bureau of Land Management sort of pretends that they never disturbed it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do any mining in this country at all. So there's no need for an independent rare earth mine. A standalone mine to mine rare earths is ridiculous. We get almost all the rare earths we need just from mining everything else.
70% of China's rare earths come from the byproduct production from an iron ore mine. So China's very heavily utilizes byproduct, co-product production to keep their costs down.
Quote unquote garbage. It's waste. It's stuff that these other mines would love to get rid of.
5 years ago, I was in Washington, D.C. talking about get a rare earth economy value chain going back in this country when I met John. 2 Senate bills later and a standalone thorium rare earth bill that we worked on and had written and finished through LC. This is what I can tell you we know. John and I have probably sat down with practically every person on the Senate Energy Committee, most of the folks on the House Energy Committees. We know there is no federal money to do this. So a lot of people are eager to see the government break out $100 million or $1 billion to do this. The money's not there. It's not going to happen.